Great. So hello and welcome back to my conversations with graduates. So I have with me today the lovely Karen Wilson, who was one of the very early attendees on the course. So Karen is based in Woking and she's a full-time yoga teacher and a mum of two. And she has her own business, Samanya Yoga, that she's been running for 14 years. So offering classes online, in person, and very excitingly is now working with cancer patients. So we'll get to hear more about that. But first of all, I suppose if you can remember that far back now, what was it? What led you to want to work in this area? Why did you sort of feel that you wanted to do the training?
In I think it was 2017, I had a student of mine contact me about a friend of hers who had been diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and she had stage 4 ovarian cancer. She'd just been through her surgery, and the student that I had just wondered if there was anything that I could do in terms of helping her recovery and getting her back on her feet. So I had a conversation with the lady at the time, and yeah, we just started with some very gentle breathing techniques. And I kind of approached her at the time, having not known anything about yoga for cancer, as a postnatal student. So I had got training in postnatal care. And I worked on the fact that some of it was very much, in terms of the recovery from the surgery that she'd had, was going to be very similar to recovering from a cesarean. And that's where I started. So we just did a lot of breathing work around her surgery area. And she was heading into chemotherapy as well. So we did a lot of kind of restorative breathing, very gentle, just keep the body moving, trying to gain some strength side of things. She'd lost, through the course of the chemotherapy, she ended up losing some feeling in her toes. We just worked on trying to build all the neural pathways to be able to get things working again. And I guess I came to the course based on the fact that I'd been working with her for a while, but just wanted to reaffirm that what I was doing to support her was the best that I could give her, and find out if there was anything that I could add in that would benefit further. That's where it all started.
Yeah, and sometimes, there's that saying, isn't there, like we don't know what we don't know. And it's not till you start down a pathway and you discover things, it's like, oh, I didn't realize this was a thing. And this is something that I need to think about. And I guess that's part of the intention behind the training, is to lay out as many things as possible that people might not realize are potential issues or side effects or impacts from diagnosis and treatment. So, because I think when you know what those things are, then you can use the skills you've got to adapt. So yeah, how was the course for you? Was it?
It
Yeah,
was. I really enjoyed it. It did a lot of reaffirming of the things that I was doing with my client were the right things to do.
yeah.
It gave me some additional things that I could play with. It gave me a lot. The bit that I really enjoyed was understanding all the different types of cancer, the different treatments. So I had a much bigger understanding of what was involved, and what was going on behind. So one of the things that I really remember was all about, it wasn't just the diagnosis, the treatment, and the recovery. It was all the other things. So it was like the appointments and the managing the schedule and managing the finances and the impact to family. And it's not just the diagnosis and the treatment, but it just balloons out from there. And to be able to use the skills of yoga and meditation to help address those and their family and support their family as well as that person.
Yeah, and it's really important actually that, you know, cancer doesn't only affect the person who has it, it's partners, children, parents, best friends, colleagues. Like there is this kind of ripple effect that goes out into the world. And yeah, there's lots of ways then that we can support people, and there's not always, that's what I love with yoga, is it can be so holistic. We can look at recovery from surgery and side effects of chemotherapy and the stress and the anxiety and some support for family members as well. I think all of those things are so important. And also to the person who is the one with cancer, to know that their family are also getting a little bit of support as well. So there's often a lot of guilt that comes alongside a cancer diagnosis, sadly. You know, it's just like another burden on top of everything else.
The thing that I liked or kind of find with yoga is it's adaptable. So through the course of the chemotherapy, obviously she had weeks where she felt a lot more energetic and she could do more. And then there was, you know, post chemo when she wasn't feeling so great, there was with it. So you had the flexibility to adapt what you were doing to meet what her needs were.
Yeah, and I think that's the real key part of, I think, working with cancer and probably any serious illness, is that we don't have like a ready-made program of, okay, we're going to start in week 1 and do this class and take them through a program. Is like, oh, okay, how is it today? And we might have things in mind, but it just every day can be so different, that that being able to be really adaptable, I think, is really important, because it's not a progressive recovery. I'm sure you saw that, you know, that this sort of, they feel better for a bit and then there's a setback, or you're on a chemo cycle, so you start to feel better and there's another dose and then is, you know, feeling awful again. And so yes, that traditional way of maybe thinking of a progressive series of classes from beginner to intermediate to advanced, just, it doesn't really work in this setting, I don't think. So do you feel, so obviously it's lovely to hear that it gave you more confidence and there's a lot of confirmation of what you were doing already. So was there do you feel there was a shift in your teaching, or was it more that, like, was there anything that changed afterwards, or is there anything internal that changed for you?
I think it was possibly more internal, just having that deeper understanding of everything that was going on. So I was working more intuitively because I'd had restorative training background, I'd had the postnatal background. So a lot of, I was just kind of pulling from the various different areas. It definitely gave me more confidence in what I was doing was correct, and that I was making, I was kind of giving her all the proper benefits of what we were doing, rather, yeah, it was a kind of a definite internal shift of, no, I do know what I'm doing, and this is the right way forward. And I guess, like I said, that greater understanding of the bigger picture that just really helped me to provide her to her needs.
Yeah, which can be broader than we might initially think around dealing with the physical side effects, and, you know, obviously some levels of stress, but actually there can be so many other aspects that get affected.
I guess it also gave me the confidence to when she was feeling a little bit up and down, to kind of talk her through what, I mean, she understood what was going on as well, because obviously she had the medical team, but to know that I could support her holistically with what she had going on, and that I wasn't going to turn up with this, like you said, this is what we're doing today because this is where we are in the program. That I could turn up at her house and she'd be going, I'm not up for doing X, Y, or Z today, and I'd be like, it's okay, you can just lie down, or if lying down's not comfortable, or just sit up, or just do what works for you.
Yeah, and it's just meeting people where they are and seeing what they need on that day. And yeah, that's the thing, I think, with lesson planning, isn't it? That, you know, you might have a bit of a plan, but then you turn up and it's like, no, that one's just out the window. We're doing something completely different. Yeah, that sounds really lovely. And I think that the confidence side is really important, both for us as teachers, because, you know, we don't want to be working in a space where we feel really uncertain about what we're doing, but also for all the students as well, because, you know, they feel the confidence. We don't have to say anything about it, but it's clear, I think, in people's manner and speech and body language, and all about that presence that you bring, you know, either to a one-to-one or to a group class. And that in turn is such a, you know, when you feel like, oh, I'm in safe hands here, I can switch off, you know, that kind of managing people's potential trauma as well, and that hypervigilance and not feeling safe a lot of the time, or everything's uncertain and they don't know if the surgery is going to go well, or if the treatment's going to work, or if they're going to lose their job, or like all of these different things. So just to have that calm, confident presence of somebody, I think, is really therapeutic in itself before you even start doing the extra bits as well. But yes, I'm glad she found you. It sounds like it worked really well for her. So these days now you're working in a hospice, is that right?
Session in they have a well-being centre that they run, and yeah, I alternate with another lady who does some seated Tai Chi, but I go in, I've been doing it for probably about 18 months, getting close to 2 years now, and I go in and do just a gentle seated yoga session with them once a fortnight. And I have to say, it's probably one of the highlights of my week when I go in and do it, because I never necessarily know who's going to be there when I turn up. They've got a few regulars, and they are trying to make it so that it's more of a regular, that like they have certain people booked in for a certain kind of number of sessions. But depending on how people are feeling is how you don't know who's going to be turning up. But generally speaking, I'll go in and the wellbeing manager will say they're a bit agitated, or they're a bit low in energy, or they're a bit this, that, and the other. And she'll generally go, can you just go and work your magic? I'm like, okay, no pressure. But I'll go in and I'll start by going just kind of around the room, seeing where people's energy levels are, with just like a hand signal that doesn't have to be anything more than that. And they always have the invite of, you know, do what feels right for you today, and don't feel like you have to do all of it. Just kind of work with what's working. And I generally just go through all the joints of the body, getting all the different joints moving, connecting it with their breath. So we have a settling in and then an ending, some form of ending meditation, depending on what the energy levels are like and what mood it is. And the only way I can describe it is that the the energy in the room when I walk in and the energy in the room when I walk out is very different, and it's palpable. You can just have a sense of they've just gone, you know, you can't necessarily see that their shoulders are lower, but yeah, they're all a lot calmer. Generally speaking, they've all had some form of sleep, which I encourage them to do. I was like, don't worry if you fall asleep, and if you're still asleep when I've left, you know, I do try and get them all to come back into the room before I left. But you know, sometimes I have that, you know, if that's where they need to be today, if they just need a bit more eyes shut, quiet, you know, restorative time, then we'll leave them to it. But yeah, it's just lovely. It does it makes me, it's sometimes hard when you see people on a regular basis and you can see a decline sometimes, or people haven't been able to turn up because they're not very well. That can be difficult, but on the whole, it's one of my favorite sessions to do.
Yeah, and I have to say my cancer classes are some of my favorites as well. And I think it's not necessarily what people would imagine when they think about, if they've never worked with cancer and go, oh, you do cancer class in a hospice, that must be heavy, you know. And so, yeah, what I know with mine, that some of my problems in my classes, I can't get people to be quiet enough to listen because they're quite boisterous, and you know, they're chatting to each other and having a giggle and things, and it's not the atmosphere that maybe people might imagine. I don't know, how is it in your hospice class?
It can vary on a week by week basis. Sometimes it is proper chatty, and it is challenging to get them to be quiet. But generally speaking, I've always got hospice staff with me, so they will help encourage them to be quiet. But also, I just have to acknowledge that with some of them have got brain tumors, so some of it is actually not at their control.
Yeah.
Some of what's coming out, so we just slightly go with it, and I just hold that space so that they feel like they can do them, but other people can do them too. Yeah, it's just I don't actually find it difficult particularly to manage, but I just maybe because I've got that support from the hospice staff that can help as well, or maybe it's just I've done with dealing with children a lot, so I can deal with boisterous.
Yes, exactly.
It is. It's just giving them that space to do the chatty, and then, you know, going, okay, we're going to head into our relaxation. So get yourself, and generally if I go, right, get yourself comfy in the chair, that's normally the, okay, I'm going to get ourselves comfy in the chair. They get their feet up, and, you know, and then they're quite happy.
Yeah, but I think both of those things, the fact that people fall asleep and that they're quite chatty, I think are both signs that people are at ease. You know, if people are really stressed and anxious, they can be quite contained. They might not say very much, and then they're not switching off in their relaxation either. So I think the fact that they feel free to kind of be chatty with each other, and then when it comes to relaxation, that some of them are nodding off, like that to me is a sign of like being much more at ease and a much calmer nervous system. And those, yeah, and I do think often in cancer classes, like normal rules don't always apply. You know, whereas you might normally say, well, you know, a yoga class is a sacred thing, and can we all just please come in quietly and sit and let people focus in, and then for general classes, I like that for myself, just to be internal and focus on my practice. But there's something really valuable, I think, in when we're offering these classes that I think is part of their support network, that they can get additional support from other students. And that part of the, I think part of the yoga is the chatting and snoozing in a way. Because
I think that most of my classes would say that that is part of it.
Because it's part of the whole kind of intention of holding that space for people. And if part of our yoga practice is about equilibrium and relaxation, you know, we're just coming at it in a slightly different way. And, you know, they're doing breath work and movement too. So yeah, they're often not really super conventional classes, but they work.
What has been nice is with one of the ladies that's there, she really struggles when she goes for her MRI. She doesn't like the claustrophobic effect. So she's definitely, I mean, she's asked me for some stuff to do at home. So I did a little crib sheet of, you know, just circling the wrists, yeah, just circling your ankles and stuff. And then she was like, how do I deal with the MRI? So I was able to give her some tips of, you know, either focus on your body or take yourself on holiday or something to help. And she reported back the next time that I saw her that she'd managed to use those techniques in the MRI and had made it a much better experience than she'd had previously. And it was like just those little moments of being able to, and that's not in the yoga class, that's being able to take it outside of the yoga class. That I think that means a lot to me, to know that I've given them the tools to be able to help outside of that situation. So as much as I might have got their nervous system more relaxed, the fact that they can take it and do bits at home as well is huge.
It is, it's massive. And you know, those levels of anxiety that people go through, I mean, and she had the double thing of the actual process is really unpleasant for a lot of people. It's quite claustrophobic, it can be loud, you can't move, it's, you know, a lot of people struggle with that. And then there's the concern about what the result is. So there's this sort of double thing. So probably lying there is also the thoughts around, oh, what's it going to show? What does it mean? What's going to happen next? And I'm stuck in this machine and it's frightening. So being able to give people tools that they use outside of the class, like, again, I think that's a big focus of what I try to teach in my classes, but also to students on the course is, you know, your classes will be, I say, a bit unconventional, but an important part of it is let people know what these things might be useful for so they can use it when they're not in class. You know, what is there a breathing technique that will help someone get back to sleep when they wake up full of adrenaline in the early hours of the morning, or little joint movements if they've got stiff, achy joints, or these things where people can self-care, and that's giving them some power and control back. Because I think that's the other thing that people struggle with, is just feeling done to with all of that, and having something that they can do for themselves to change how they feel, I think is massive. It's like, oh, there's a bit of me that's still in control here. I can't control the machine, I can't control the result, but I can control how I am through that process, and feeling less at the whims of things that we can't control.
I think that's also why I keep it fairly simple in terms of what we do in class. There's no, I mean, the people that are generally in aren't for doing big, strong standing poses, or so it is all chair based, but I therefore kind of go, well, you can do this sat in front of the TV at home, you know, and it's all very accessible, so that they can then, what they say is that they can't remember any of it once I've left, but this is why I've created this little sheet, so that they can have the sheet and they can go, oh, I can do, you know, I'll just focus on your breath, or I can you know, rotate my head from side to side, or yeah. And I know that from the feedback from the staff that are there and from people that are in there, they've said it's like the highlight of their week when they get to come and do it, and they really feel the benefits. A lot of them would like to take me home so that I can talk to them while they're struggling to get to sleep. So I've also provided, I've got a couple of recorded meditations that I've provided through to them as well, so that I was like, you can take me home, you just get the technology, take me home, and just listen to that recording. Because again, it's because sometimes it's just having that voice to distract you from either the noises of the machine or the whirrings in your head when you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't sleep.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's so lovely. And that's, you know, that really is holistic care of not only teaching, but like, because I think memory is an issue for a lot of people from the medication and the general overwhelm. And particularly if it's an older population as well, like all of these things kind of combine. But yeah, having an easy crib sheet is such a lovely idea, and the recording. So it's something I can't remember when you did the course if it was part of it, but we do have a section where the homework now is to make a 10-minute recording for relaxation.
You have to do that
Yeah,
as part.
because it's such these days, you know, you can do it on your phone, you know, it's not like when I first qualified. Yeah, that is such a useful thing for students to have for that 2-3 a.m. oh my god, I can't sleep, and they can't phone anybody at that point for help, you know. It's and they're probably not wanting to get up and do stuff, so just having something available to help them get back to sleep is really lovely. Or just, you know, practicing doing a breathing meditation, something like that they could do every afternoon as a daily practice that's guided. There's lots of uses, and I think it's a way that we can help people more without kind of burning out, running around trying to look after everybody. That's lovely. So for other teachers watching this who are curious about finding work, how was it for you, or how did you get your placement in the hospice? Did you know people there already, or was it just something in your area?
So the hospice is in my area. I'm fortunate to have a very good hospice, and they built a brand new centre a few years ago. I kind of got in contact because so my next door neighbour ended up also having bowel cancer, and she got a lot of care through the hospice as well. Through that, I got a contact in the centre who then put me in contact, but it wasn't like I knew that person really well. It just happened to be an email, and I think some of it also was that I just happened to get in as the hospice was redeveloping its wellbeing offering post COVID. So I dropped. So it was the bereavement lady that I was in contact with, and then she put me in contact with the other lady, and we just met and we had a conversation, and I explained what I could do. And what I'd like to offer, and we kind of together came up with well, this is what we could do, we'll see how it goes. And like I say, I think it's 2 years come September that I'll be doing it. And we've pretty much each time we're like, well, we might do something. We've talked about doing different things, and at the minute we're just it's working, and it's really lovely. From that, I've also ended up doing a bereavement support as well. So they run a bereavement course, and in that we have a couple of yoga sessions. So again, it's gentle yoga focused on a little bit more on the healing, accepting whatever emotions come up, but supporting them through that process as well. Because I personally know how helpful yoga has been at that time of just being gentle with your body and with your emotions. So being able to go and do that with them as well. We do a little bit more active stuff because they're generally able to stand up. We're still not doing any crazy poses, but one of my favorites is where we do a supported tree and they all touch palms together so that they can feel the support of each other. That's normally gets a combination of giggles and slightly uncomfortable feeling as they're touching hands with each other. But yeah, since I've been, they just keep that. After the first course that I did, they were like, please, can you come back and do some more, because they really loved it and they really enjoyed having you there. And just that kind of, again, it's that settling of the nervous system.
Yeah, you feel that energy shift. Yeah, it's quite palpable sometimes, isn't it? And it's lovely that they are open to ongoing dialogue and development, because there are so many things we can do with yoga. There's many different ways or different types of support we could offer. And I guess being in communication with the organization, in this case, the hospice, about, well, what are their, like, what's their general purpose, or what is it what do they need to offer as a center, and do they have a mission statement? Are there particular things they're supposed to meet the needs of? So if they're meant to offer bereavement support, then you can bring yoga into that, because it's hugely powerful. I mean, breath work and grief. I mean, grief is a long thing, so very big connection there. And then, yeah, we could do just a restorative Nidra type class, or you can do more active classes if people are younger and recovering from surgery and they want rehab. So there's loads of different things we can do. But yeah, I think having that conversation with somebody is the important bit at the outset, and then seeing how that develops, and I suppose being adaptable as well.
I think the key bit in terms of anyone else thinking about getting in contact with the hospices or working in this field is really focusing on the benefits of what you can bring to them. And I do the work that I do with the Wellbeing Centre is on a voluntary basis. But I get back, and you talk about this, I know, in the course about is there any other benefits that you can get? So I have my DBS check done. I get fire safety training, first aid training, safeguarding training is all provided by the hospice. So there's a lot of kind of benefits that I get from it, other than just the joy of working in the hospice. And actually being, as a yoga teacher, quite often you're on your own, and it's put me back in a team.
It's so nice, isn't
quite
it?
Nice of having other people around to talk to, and not that I've managed to make it because of my other teaching commitments, but they have Christmas dinners, and they have other events for the staff that I could go along to, again, just part of that team.
Yes. No, it is. It's lovely having that support. And so in practical terms about the class, do they kind of vet who's coming? Do they manage the bookings? And so you don't have to deal with any of that. So they
deal with all of that for me, both on the well-being, on the bereavement, and occasionally they have carers days. So again, they manage all the booking of that, and I just have to turn up and, as Nick would say, do my magic.
Yes. And
Um,
also, I think, well, one of the things I appreciate at Maggie's, that sort of thing of being in a centre, is having somebody to talk to if I've got concerns. You know, if it's either, either if it's something for myself that I need to talk to someone about, or I'm concerned about somebody in the class and I would like them to keep an eye or follow up or have a cup of tea and check in with them. It's really nice to feel there's that bigger holding going on, because yeah, people going through cancer treatment have a lot going on for them. So yeah, I'm assuming that's something that you get as well with the hospice.
very supportive, and when I'm in my sessions, there's generally always a volunteer or a member of the wellbeing centre there as well, just in case there is anything that goes on. On the very, very rare occasions, and I could probably put them on one hand where I've been on my own, there's always been someone just along the corridor that, and they've always like, if there's anything, just come and get us.
Yeah.
And also they kind of respect the space as well, so they make sure that if again, it's very rare that the physio or a doctor has to come and see someone that's in the session, but they will try and make sure that it's not in that time, so that they can just have that space to themselves. But if they do have to, generally speaking, they'll go, I'm really sorry, but there is someone due to come and see whoever.
Yeah.
Hopefully they won't disturb. But most of the time they kind of sneak around outside and wait until I'm finished.
So the people that you're teaching, are they residential or is it more daycare? Do they drop in?
Been, yeah, it's been a bit of both actually. Sometimes it's people that are in the hospice. I think the majority of people are daycare, so they come in for the well-being and they go, but there've definitely been people that have come down from the wards to kind of have a little bit of, and they might be on the wards because they're having it's respite care, or that there's something going. I certainly know with my neighbour, there was a couple of times she just needed to go in because there was something with her medication and that needed sorted out, and that it wasn't easy to do at home, so it was much easier to do in the hospice setting with all the staff and stuff around, which is why it can kind of fluctuate on who's in, because if they've got people in the ward that want to come and do it, then they do their best to get people down to do it.
Yeah. No, that's lovely. And I think it's also just to sort of reiterate, I guess, if people are less familiar with hospices, it's not only that people go there to die. There's lots of reasons why people have some time in a hospice. And I've known people who, yeah, a bit of respite care. They've reached a tricky point in their treatment and they can't manage administering everything. Or I had a lovely lady who lived alone, and after some surgery, she just couldn't cope living on her own for a period of time. So spent some time in the hospice just to get that nursing care round the clock and make sure her dressings were okay and her medication was okay and she was being fed. And then she went home again. And equally, there's daycare as well. And there's lots of reasons. So I would encourage people to approach and find out about their local hospice and support their local hospice. They do an amazing job for society as a whole, I think. And a lot of them do just rely on donations. I don't know if there's government funding. There's probably a certain amount, but I think they're largely charity.
Majority of it is charity, yeah, and the hospice that I work with is definitely charity. And as part of it, I've done fundraising for the charity as well. I did a workshop and I donated some of the workshop to the charity. And I've now started a class for the staff as well. And as part of that staff yoga, is that I do a donation because I don't have to rent the hall or
Yeah,
rent a
so you've kind of
space
got a
for
free
it.
space you can use.
So yeah, they've got a space and they clear all the chairs out, so they set it up, and I just do a little donation, you know, per student, depending on who we've had in, that then goes into the hospice as a charitable donation as well. So kind of, and I think, I don't know whether that helps with the staff, but you know, that the fact that they're going to this yoga class, but there's a bit going into the hospice to help the hospice too.
Yes.
I think is a nice thing to do.
Yeah, and the staff needs support too. And I think sort of getting back to that ripple effect is, all the patients in the hospice need the support of the staff. And of course, the staff are giving a lot and they have to have their needs met so that they are well nourished and resourced to look after the people. And so there's this kind of knock-on effect. So indirectly, you're still helping cancer patients by teaching the staff, because if it helps them, be calmer and more energized and happier, or whatever benefits they're getting from it, or, have better posture for lifting and moving. I mean, I know nurses constantly have back problems.
I was going to say there's a few of them that come in with back problems. Yeah, they just, it does and you can, the more that you talk to the staff, the more that you can hear that they're getting the benefits of it as well, and it's not just half an hour for themselves. It's more than that they're getting.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, I'm sort of aware of time. I could very happily carry on chatting for ages because it's really interesting. And I'm really happy to hear, all this work that you're doing out in the community now. It's always my intention with the training is that there's loads of people with cancer who need yoga, who don't have it. So I would love teachers all over the place to be running classes. So very happy to hear that you're doing this one, and there may be more to come as well. Okay. And so before we sign off, where can people find you if they wanted to get in touch?
So there's my website, which is samanyayoga.co.uk. So it's SAM. Yeah, I was going to say, it's a bit of it seemed really sensible 14 years ago. And the reason being, so Samanya in Sanskrit means common or everyone. And that's what I wanted my yoga to be. I wanted it to be for everyone. So if nothing else, you can remember common or everyone in Sanskrit. That's where you get the yoga back from. And I'm in Woking, but like you said earlier, you can come in person, we can do online. I've done a lot of online. It's like the client that I first had, we did a lot during COVID as an online practice, and she got a lot out of that as well. So yeah, that's probably the best place. And then the hospice that I work for is Woking and Sambir Hospice. So you can always see if you can contact me through them as well.
Wonderful, and it's good to give them a shout out as well.
Yes.
So we'll put the link in. So thank you for joining me today. It's been a really lovely conversation, and wish you well with your teaching, and maybe we'll catch up in another couple of years and see how things are going then. All right, thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of your week.
Thank you.